Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us for today's webinar, Beyond the Clicks, the financial services edition. We're just going to wait about 30 seconds more, give everyone a chance just to finish logging in and before we kick off today's session. Okay, thank you. Brilliant. Thank you, everyone, for holding on for a moment. We're ready to kick off today's webinar. So I'm very pleased to present today's topic, Beyond the Clicks, the Financial Services Edition. We run these regularly as a consultancy where we look at a couple of well-known brands. Typically, the likes of everyone on the call suggests brands for review for the next edition. So, off of the back of today's session, if there's any brands you would like us to analyze in terms of what makes their customer experience really great, what are the opportunities for other brands to take away some good ideas, let us know. We're always happy to spend time digging into websites and apps and anything out there. We're really keen for suggestions. So my name is Mario Kiriakou. I'm one of the founders here at Ratio. We're a financial services digital experience optimization consultancy. So we work with a bunch of different brands, insurance companies, FS, payment providers, helping them analyze what is a good experience, helping define that, because I think one of the things we talk about today, the definition of a good experience is a movable feast in terms of the definition of that, and then the practicalities of, okay, how do we pinpoint opportunities across sort of your digital landscape for where you can improve the experience for your customers, but ultimately look to optimize those touch points for your end goal, which perhaps are product goal related. So I'm really pleased to be joined by two of my super smart colleagues, Doug Morris and Kaylee Green, and they will be running through today's session. So it's really interactive. We're not going to try and bore you with presentations. We have quite a different format for the approach of these. But I'm just going to hand off to Doug shortly. But before I do, just to say a couple of sort of ground rules for today's session. It's recorded. We'll send it out in a couple of days. There will be time for Q&A at the end. If you have any questions, please drop these into your sort of Zoom chat bar, and we will run through these at the end, and we'll answer as many as we can. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Doug just to kickstart today's session.
Thank you, Mario. Yes, I'm Doug, the Insights Director at Ratio. I will be hopefully not boring you, but going through a few slides with a bit more of a macro view on optimization and what makes a successful optimization program in FS and why it's so critical. And then the truly exciting stuff will come when Kaylee, my colleague, launches into a couple of top brands, and we do a bit of a breakdown of their digital experience. So in terms of the agenda, what we're covering today, well, we just tick the first box, which is a welcome introduction and letting you know that we'll be recording things. Next, we want to go through some of the common challenges in FSI optimization programs, what the stakes of inaction are. Does it even matter that these challenges exist? Should we be thinking about how to solve them, or can we be complacent? Two possible versions of the future, if we do or don't decide to address those challenges, looking at what some of the key elements are within a company that has a more transformational optimization program, what levers we can pull to address those challenges, and then springboarding from one of the levers I'm going to talk about, we'll kind of use that as the basis for our review of the brands that I mentioned. So I am going to presume that if you are an FSI marketer, that some, if not all of these challenges will be familiar to you. And they really are the most common ones that we come across that are preventing FSI brands from delivering a fantastic customer experience. So just briefly to touch on some of the challenges that we see that we think need to be addressed. Oftentimes, we see a company out customer experience where the information architecture, language and copy, page layouts, etc., are kind of constructed based on how the bank or FSI company view themselves rather than based on customer need, which is obviously a little bit suboptimal when it comes to creating a great customer experience as opposed to a banking employee experience. Oftentimes, there's simply too many cooks in the kitchen, which leads to fragmentation within a journey where separate people own separate parts, even though one customer will be experiencing the totality of that journey. We're seeing increasing pressure to commercialize marketing technology that, to be frank, is still often sitting in silos and rather disconnected. In many cases, the pace of experimentation isn't really growing at the rate that we'd want to see in order for there to be some real cultural change occurring as a result of this experimentation. And many times that's because of two factors, one of which is that we have these business side stakeholders like legal and compliance or product owners who aren't really bought into going with us on the mission. And as marketers, particularly in massive and complex businesses, we're very far disconnected from the customer. And that obviously is not going to lead to the best results from an optimization point of view. Does it even matter though? We still have our 30% market share. Surely things will remain fine for us into the future. And our point of view at Ratio is that yes, it does matter, and we shouldn't be complacent, and we should still try and do exciting stuff, even despite the fact that we have these challenges. And won't it be even more rewarding if we're able to achieve some brilliant customer experiences, even though we're not in a 20 million pound e-commerce business where life is so simple as a marketer. So some statistics that we're seeing that demonstrate the need to kind of come up with solutions for these problems are one that presumably many of you will be familiar with, which is that customer expectations are changing. Probably your own expectations as a customer are changing. The benchmark for a good experience isn't anymore necessarily your peers, but it's leading digital first companies, social networks, Amazon, app-based marketplaces like Uber. These are the companies that you're being compared to. And as a result, the expectations that customers have in terms of the level of experience that you're delivering are indeed higher than ever before. As a result of these expectations being higher, it's influencing the decision-making that customers are making around who and which companies they choose to engage with to take products and services. So 80% of customers believe that the experience is as important as the products or services themselves, according to Salesforce. And 57% of customers have stopped buying from a company because a competitor provides a better experience. Looking to FS specifically, we know that if we look at ourselves or like research that exists, that most companies in FS or FSI are still not really nailing this. So less than 50% of FS companies believe that they have well-designed user journeys that facilitate clear communication, e-consultancy. And tying all this together, there's research out there to say that in fact, this will at some point have an impact on our market share if we don't start to act on these challenges. So digital laggards in FS could stand to lose up to 35% of market share. So we have a fork in the road. And I'm going to present two different versions, possible versions of the future, two different ideas of what life could be like in 5 or 10 years' time as your journey as an optimization marketer. And there's definitely one that we have a strong preference for, but we'll let you make your own decision. So this sort of theme is not new. We can look to many examples in history of companies that had the opportunity to act, but chose not to innovate, chose to be complacent, chose to sit on their hands and just be comfortable with their position in the market rather than thinking about where they needed to be in the future. And you may not be aware of this, but Kodak actually invented the first digital camera in 1975. So that's a lot of years ago, maybe like 45, almost 50 years. but they went bankrupt in 2012. And the reason that that happened is because they suppressed the innovation. They chose not to take the digital camera to market because they had such great market share with their more traditional analog offerings, and thought that they didn't want to cannibalize the position they were already in. And look what happened. Conversely, and this is the kind of the best publicly available example I have of an FS company really killing it from an optimization transformation point of view, although it is a little bit dated now. We have Royal Bank of Scotland, who within the space of 1 year managed to grow their optimization team to the point where they delivered 200x as many experiments and had 25x the headcount just in the space of, I guess, like 9 to 18 months. So this is to say, there are examples of companies like yours that are out there that have made significant inroads on this optimization excellence very, very quickly. And there's no reason that this could not also be the case for yourselves. So we work with a lot of FSI companies as well as other companies supporting them with optimization and personalization consultancy services. And we see time and time again common factors in terms of those that are doing it really successfully versus those that aren't. And we wanted to talk through some of those factors with you today. So factor number one is that leading FSI companies are thinking about designing a service, not just a front-end user experience. And what do I mean by service or service design if you haven't heard those words before? Well, firstly, before I tell you what it is, I'll tell you what the challenge is that it needs to overcome. We talk through some of the common challenges that we see in FSI optimization, and presumably, as I said, you've seen some of those yourself. And the fact of the matter is that many of these challenges are actually not really about the user experience that your customers or prospects have. The challenges are about your people and technology that are preventing you from delivering that fantastic user experience or customer experience that you want to. And service design is a methodology that lets you start to address the internal challenges, or backstage challenges as they're called, in order to be able to achieve that fantastic UX or customer experience that you're looking to achieve. And so in a nutshell, which I already kind of covered, but service design thinks about the service from 2 points of view. One is front stage, and presumably you've seen user journey maps or flows over time, which look at what a customer is, like who the customer is, what they're thinking and feeling, where their pain points are. And taking a service design approach means adding to that viewpoint about what the customer is experiencing with what's actually happening within your organization at each of those steps. And so where perhaps one step on a customer journey map might be that a customer submits an application for a product and needs to wait 7 days for a yes or no, for argument's sake. Service design is looking at what is happening in the backstage at that point, which might be that there's teams that aren't working together very efficiently, hence it's taking 7 days, that there's technology that needs to be better connected or needs to be more automation occurring in order to improve upon that time. And so I guess you can see that by understanding not only where the customer pain point is, but also what the drivers of that are in terms of how your organization is operating, working together, then you can really get to the root cause of addressing these problems rather than just making some fixes around the edges if you're focusing purely on the UX. And so what this will normally look like is kind of an embellished customer journey map, which would look, well, not, hopefully your customer journey maps don't look like this, but in a very simplified form, this is what a customer journey would look like at the top. And then for each of the steps within the customer journey, we would map out what's happening in the backstage. Now, critically, what we don't want to do, and probably can't, to be frank, because none of us I think, on this call, CMO, CTO, CXO, or people with the influence to fix all of those problems at once. And that's a good thing, because what we don't want to do is look at this information and then implement a 3 to 5 year waterfall transformation project where we think upfront that we have all the right solutions as to how we address these challenges. And then we get 2 years down the line and realize that actually some of what we thought we knew was based on faulty assumptions, etc. And so rather, with service design, the idea is to take more of an incrementalist approach in order to start to fix some of these problems. And so some examples might be that you could probably implement in your own role. Let's say one issue is that you're really struggling with the timeframes for legal compliance, ad control approval when you want to get an experiment live on your website. Well, taking this service design model and applying this, we'd look at how we can conduct internal experiments within the bank, within the organization, that can work out what the best solution is to the problem, rather than just, again, assuming that we already know what the solution should be. So it might be that you work with your compliance colleagues and say, hey, let's have a Slack channel in month 1, where we just have one place where we can all communicate together, and let's see if that fixes the issue. And potentially it won't. But then within 4 weeks, we've identified that a Slack channel is not the solution. And instead now maybe we look at something a bit more complex, like creating a working group to address the challenges. Or maybe let's think about the fact that there's issues with MarTech integration that are preventing you from achieving what you really want to. Rather than having a waterfall integration project, maybe we just use a feature of your testing tool, which, let's say it's Adobe Target, and we use the bulk profile update, and we get a Excel file of all the attributes that we want to personalize on, and we just manually upload that and see what the obviously it wouldn't be quite that straightforward, but and through this experiment, see what information we should actually have in Adobe Target, what the impact is of having it there, etc., and what its benefits are, in order to be able to refine further over time for when that integration does come about. So yeah, I think in organizations where the challenge is the UX, but it's not because of the UX, it's because of these internal challenges that the UX is for. A service design approach really helps you to overcome those challenges. All right, back to number 2 that we see in organizations doing really well from a optimization point of view is that they're looking at not just how they optimize the experience that they're delivering to their customers, but also looking at how they optimize the way that they're optimizing. And it is true that your optimization program, like RBSs, won't just grow exponentially from 2 experiments a year to 400 experiments a year by accident. Obviously, there's many factors there in terms of resourcing, strategy, etc. But one thing that we can do to help nudging things in the right direction is to look at how we're actually setting KPIs around our optimization program itself. And so what I'd encourage you to think about is that KPIs are not just for your website. They can also help us understand, much like how in a let's say an application funnel, KPIs or metrics can help us understand where the pain points are and where more resources need to be invested to fix things. We can use them in the same way for optimization programs. And so some examples of KPIs for optimization programs that we see being quite successful are velocity versus capacity. So not just looking at how many experiments we're running, but looking at the upper limit within a given journey for how many experiments we could be running over a period of time, and using this to understand which journeys within our website or ecosystem could have more resources put behind them, because we're only running 1 test a month, but there's sufficient traffic and conversions for 10 tests, for argument's sake. Looking at how many days it takes us to get an idea to market in front of the eyeballs of actual customers, and trying to see that that's decreasing over time, because we can't be in a situation where complex tests are taking us 9 months to get live if we want any hope in hell of making radical improvements to the customer experience. And then some more traditional ones, like what percentage of experiments give you some sort of insight, be that a conclusive win or loss, trying to get your defect rate down to 0%, so you never need to pause or stop any experiments because there were issues that weren't identified during QA, and looking at, for example, where you do have a winning test within one journey, let's say within credit cards, looking at how that idea or learning can be scaled to other journeys, and what percentage of your winning ideas aren't just applied, but are also moved elsewhere. So yes, that's factor number 2, which is how do we improve the optimization program, not just look at how we can improve the website itself. And then factor number 3, which is probably more of a self-evident one, but is so crucial, is to what extent are we maximizing the value that we're getting from all of the sources of, or potential sources of customer insight that we have access to. And I do not see any successful optimization programs that don't have this process of customer insight generation absolutely. So just to show you a couple of things that we do from this point of view, well, no, that's not true. I will in a moment, but looking at some optimized statistics, actually what they're seeing in the past 5 years is that 88% of tests don't win. And that's talking to, I believe, this fact that many experiments are being launched without any genuine basis in customer insight, and where you think that you're solving a problem, but the problem doesn't actually exist, or the solution's wrong because you don't understand the problem properly, then we have a failed test. And especially if it's not a conclusive failure, what a waste of time and resources that is. And I guess we do need to reflect on the fact that that access to customers can be very tricky in organizations like ours or yours, because we're many steps removed from the customer. And so unlike at ASOS, for example, where a marketer can probably pretty easily get a panel of customers to do some usability testing, I know it's not the case in most FS organizations, but one source of data you do have is your web analytics data. And so how can we squeeze that as hard as possible to extract as much customer insight as possible? And so now, here are a couple of techniques that we use that you might find helpful. One is what we call journey matrices. So let's say you have a website, has many possible journeys you could be trying to optimize, and you need to understand where you should prioritize your effort over and above just the fact that a certain product is strategically important. And we can use journey matrices in order to find these opportunities. So we create 2 matrices typically. One is looking at where customers are entering within the website, like what content area, not individual pages, but kind of trying to aggregate things together. So who, in this travel company example, who entered within the Europe content area or within North America, etc., which channels they came from, and then looking at what the contribution of these combination of entry area and channel is to the number of sessions that are arriving on the website, and then doing the same thing, but looking at it from the point of view of conversions. And the 2 things that this can help with are, one, identifying places where there's a shed load of traffic. Like you can see here, this very dark blue box for SEO traffic entering onto other shores. Like that's the journey that gets the most traffic, but it gets relatively few conversions. So what can we do to try and make better use of that traffic? Or on the other hand, where do we get a lot of conversions, like homepage entries from paid search, where we get relatively little traffic? And again, thinking about how we can maybe get more traffic to look at that high converting content, and making decisions like that. The other thing that we do when we're working with clients is to translate this plus additional analysis into these journey maps. So we look at what are the, as I mentioned, like the key kind of journeys, which are the channel and entry area combination that traffic is hitting. And then not just looking at what the outcome is, like what percentage of that traffic converts, but also trying to map out what that traffic does. So in a, like for anonymity's sake, this data's a bit hard to make out, but what you would be able to see here in a full resolution version of this image is that we are mapping out which pages people go to from the page they land on, which in this case is the homepage, where they go to from there, what the dropout rate is, in some cases, what the split is between devices. And then before and after this journey, looking at the contribution to the journey in terms of which devices, channels, new or returning, etc., comprise the traffic, and then looking over here at the conversion rate of the journey based on those same factors. So what's the conversion rate of each device type, etc. And having a really solid understanding of how your website journeys are performing like this truly does help us to understand where the opportunities are rather than just guess at it. And as a result, our experiments have something like a 40 to 50% win rate versus that 12% that we saw of all optimized customers. The final factor that we see in successful FSI optimization teams is that marketers internalize that they're not their customer. Yeah, this we're not our customer in most cases unless we're very lucky, and so we shouldn't use our own biases, assumptions, etc., to decide what our customers want. And one thing that could be quite helpful in order to like step outside of our own shoes and into our customer shoes is to use some frameworks like this lift model, which Kaylee will talk about more in a moment, which helps us to more objectively understand what our customers might be thinking and feeling as they're on our website. And yeah, I'll hand over to Kaylee, who will talk a little bit about how a model like this could be applied in practice.
Thank you very much, Doug. So I will just take over the screen. So yes, as we've kind of said, we were going to have a little bit of a delve into a couple of example companies. So this was really focused around Barclays, the more kind of traditional financial services or bank, against kind of something which is a bit more fintech, so the likes of Monzo. But ultimately, it's applying the lift model. And the lift model has been around since about 2009, originally created by a company called Wider Funnel. And this was just really a tool to enable marketers, optimizers, to take an objective view of their customer experience and give a framework around it. And so there are a few key factors for this framework. So the first one we're just going to delve into is around when you're viewing a page or a journey, an experience on your website or your app, is thinking about, is it really conveying a value proposition? So value propositions are going to be kind of a great kind of indicator about who you are, what you're about, and who you're for. So taking that example with Barclays, so we're going to take a look at the homepage first. So ultimately, somewhere where you are likely to land if you're looking, for example, around a personal banking account. So when we kind of land on this page, so taking an objective view of this, like at the moment, it's not immediately obvious or prominent about what Barclays are about, who they're for, who they want to capture. There is kind of a little tagline about kind of what they can help you with, so your current accounts, mortgages, but ultimately they could make a lot more of this. They are using that top of the page to be kind of very product-led, and that can be a very good thing. So you're being quite targeted. And again, that could be a great opportunity where you can apply things such as personalization. So if you know something about these customers, this is a great opportunity to use personalization to put the right product in front of people at the right time. But when we're thinking about that value proposition, again, not kind of like overly obvious as you kind of land on this page, but what we might be able to say is that there's more kind of product-led value propositions. So going individual value propositions for individual products. So for example, your savings account or investments, who it's going to be for to try and capture the right people. The next one, when we think about the lift model, is relevance. So when people get to a particular part of a journey or to a page, is that what they expect? Is it connected to where they've actually come from? Now, in the sense of a homepage is a homepage. So if you had come from organic search, for example, and you'd chosen Barclays, ultimately you would expect to land on the homepage unless you have chosen to go deeper into the site. So when we're really thinking about relevance from a homepage perspective, is what is it meant to do? Ultimately, it's going to be your launch pad. It's going to be your signpost deeper into your journey. And Barclays, at the moment, are doing this quite well. It's quite simple and very clear. And that's the next one, is around clarity. So that's also part of the lift model. Is it simple to understand? Is it clear? Do I know where I'm going to be going? And they've got this really nice grid format here. Now, you could arguably say, is this too much, Joyce? But again, this might be an opportunity where you could personalize and again, put the right thing in front of the right customer at the right time. And that's not necessarily that you have to do it by knowing someone previously. There might be kind of behavioral indicators that you know from other people like them that you could then start to apply. So it's more of a behavioral targeting layer rather than like traditional personalization. But in this case, like it's very clear and simple. And as I kind of mentioned, a clear grid format. What they've also done is they haven't gone like overboard in making those CTAs really, really bold, which might be kind of overwhelming for someone who's landing on this page. And again, that then leads us into the next point, which is around distraction and anxiety. So it's great if you want to kind of signpost people deeper into your journey, but are you doing it with a lot of distraction? As I kind of mentioned, the overwhelming part of that. So that's always something to bear in mind when you are thinking about your customer experiences and your journeys. And really ask yourselves, what is it that our customers actually want? And you'll get that from your insights, as kind of Doug mentioned. One thing we wanted to note, and this was kind of an interesting observation as we were kind of analysing this, is you notice the kind of design of this homepage. Now, if I go deeper into the site, you'll notice it completely changes. So ultimately go, right, this is potentially a test. And so there's a counteractive point to this. So for example, if you're wanting to test a redesign of your homepage, for example, and you're doing that in isolation, then you have to understand that if people are then going to be moving deep into your site, whether that's going to be a jarring experience. So there are two ways that you can think about this, and then this is how you work together with other teams in understanding, like, what is it that we want to learn at this point in time? Is it going to be beneficial for us to test a redesign in isolation? And sometimes, yes, it can, because ultimately when you test a redesign, it's because you want to alleviate any risk. You want to understand how it's going to perform before you release it. And then that's working with, your product owners, for example, if you're doing it on product pages. However, you've then got to also think, how disruptive is that going to be for like end goals which are a bit further down the customer experience? So then what might that impact of this test be on getting to a particular product page, for example? So something which you have to kind of really balance quite well. And to show you kind of the example of what we believe is being tested at the moment. So ultimately, you've kind of got the design as it is today, and then testing two different types of home pages. So quite bold designs where they've kind of changed where things are in the header. And then it's really looking at, whether it's going to be the color scheme and what's going to be most appealing there. One thing also to note here, and when we're thinking about things such as clarity and what it is that we want people to do, or what Barclays are wanting people to do, is around the subtle use of CTAs in the header. So you can tell here, for example, that potentially they might be subtly drawing people towards an investment ISA. And so again, these are kind of nice ways of using clarity in terms of how you want to guide people. And the last point in the lift model is urgency. And this kind of conveys this quite well. So for example, if there are offers, then you really kind of want to center in your urgency without making people feel anxious. So again, the nice balance there. This is a nice kind of subtle thing here, like time is money. So you're kind of giving that psychological thing around urgency here. But that was just a really nice observation there. We'll just take an example of going a little bit deeper into Barclays' journey. So we come here, so we're looking at one journey. Someone wants to compare current accounts, and so they land on this page. So again, let's think about the lift model. How might we be able to apply it to this point in the journey? Again, when we think about value propositions, not necessarily right there at the forefront in your face. It's more kind of beneficial led. What's going to work for you? So, but what we can say is that there are individual propositions for each account. What is it about? Who is it for? Who is eligible? And that's like really important. This is quite clear here. At this point in this journey, this is where we want to be like quite informative, so that when we get people going further into the journey, that it's more qualified traffic, and that, because essentially with like Barclays as a traditional bank, it's not really going to be a linear funnel like you see with the likes of e-commerce, your ASOS's, your Newlicks, for example. There are a lot more avenues because there are a lot more products, and they might be a new customer, they might be an existing customer. So it's worth thinking about how might we be able to create a pseudo-linear journey for a particular type of customer. And so ultimately you can drive people deeper to where they want to get to and signpost them better. And that, you know, when we're looking at relevance, you know, this is quite well signposted, quite well in terms of when looking at comparisons, really, really clear about who the different types of accounts are for. Interestingly, that Barclays are now kind of driving people to open accounts within the app, which is great. The one thing here I would say from a customer experience point of view is that I'm on a desktop at the moment. If I click this button, you know, it's not going to really help me. So that is obviously mobile first design, fantastic. But then what they could do here is like make use of QR codes if you recognize that people are on a desktop. So, you know, some subtle kind of personalization there that could be used to make the clarity part of the lift model pop a lot more. We could argue, is there too much choice here? But that is then something which could be tested and potentially then personalized. Distraction, they do have a sticky header. I always say like testing sticky headers is a very good test idea, because sometimes it can be a great signposter, sometimes it can be a distraction. And it's really going to be about testing that to find out what is going to work for your visitors or for your potential customers. Also, in terms of like alleviating anxiety, there is the use of the switch guarantee, which is great, but is that too far down the page? I've had to scroll all the way down the page to actually showcase that to people. So again, something which could be tested to see how that fares. What I'll do is I'll just kind of switch over to Monzo now. So we know essentially that Monzo is a app first journey, but also then interesting to see like how they make use of, you know, their desktop and their web experiences to drive people into that journey. You know, you might have people who actually want to find out a bit more about Monzo before they delve into downloading the app. And it's also quite interesting to see then some of the comparisons that we're making with more traditional financial services companies with this disruptor that was Monzo at the time. So really clear value proposition here, right at the forefront. This is what we do. This is how you can get it, and it's for free. So a great use of like value proposition right at the top of the page with a clear call to action. So clear call to action in terms of, you know, what it wants you to do, but potentially not a clear call to action of what's going to happen next. You start to question, right, okay, so your fintech brand, we know that you're predominantly wanting to onboard people through your app. If I go to open a Monzo account here, where is that going to take me? And we'll go there in a second. When we then look at this page, you know, you've got the great use of Trustpilot, you know, alleviating anxiety here with a lot of logos. How many people are actually using the account, so they're very trustworthy. Again, here though, and surprisingly for potentially like the likes of Monzo, again, I'm on a desktop, no use of kind of QR codes to get me to the app quicker without me having to do the work of going into the App Store and downloading it. Some really clear upfront benefits. So clarity is great here and really clear in terms of how long it's going to take. So an example from Barclays is they said, you know, apply in a few minutes. But actually, when you go through that onboarding journey, it is quite lengthy. So as you being like, you know, quite upfront is like you need to take 15 minutes out of your day. Then, you know, people have already set that expectation. And so they're like, okay, this is how long it's going to take me. I'm ready for this. And you'll kind of get that more qualified onboarding journey and more people likely to follow through on that onboarding journey as well. So let's go back to this idea around this CTA. Where am I going? So I now come to this page here. So, okay, in terms of like when we're thinking again, going back to this lift model, It's clear, okay, start your application, but why do you want my email address? Why don't I just download the app? What's going on here? So that might be adding to that anxiety factor when we're thinking about, and also that relevancy factor. Were you really expecting to see this? Is this kind of a bit jarring as part of your customer experience? So that would be where I would question around whether there should be some kind of like more upfront information about what's going to happen, where you're going to go, so that you can, again, get more qualified people into that journey. So let's submit it. Great. Here is the QR code now. So now this is really relevant. Okay, I was expecting to go onto the app. Is there too many steps in the way? Why have you now got my email address? Again, leading into that kind of distraction and anxiety part of that lift model. So here, really clear instructions, already kind of giving you an indicator of the types of documents you're going to need to go through this onboarding process, so you can start to gather these already, so people aren't scrabbling around when they're already within that onboarding journey. So very, very clear there. So there was just kind of like a quick whistle-top tour. So using Barclays and Monzo as a couple of examples of where you could potentially apply that lift model as part of your business and as part of your customer journeys or onboarding journeys, and really getting into the heads of your customer about what it is that they're expecting, and whether you are a more traditional company or, you know, more of the kind of disruptor companies. The same model can be applied to both. And then, yes, so that's something that hopefully you can take away from today and start using for yourselves. So I'll hand you back to Mario.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kaylee. Thank you, Doug. We're actually right at the end of the 45 minutes, so I don't actually think we have time for Q&A today. We don't want to run over, but what we'll do is we'll run through any questions which have come through, and we'll get back to everyone individually with a response. So, I mean, last, I'd like to say thank everyone for taking the time out of the day to join us for today's sessions. If there's any questions you have, let us know. If there's any brands you want us to cover off on next month's session, again, let us know. We'll send over a recording in a couple of days. And yeah, just thank you very much, and hopefully see you on the next session.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.